Myth number 1 is that productivity is about getting your work done faster. There's a couple of things wrong with this idea. First of all, speed is good, but only if you apply it in the right direction. Let's say that you haven't set very clear goals for yourself. You can be super busy, hustling all day long, and maybe this sounds really familiar to you. You have no time whatsoever, but if you don't know which way you're going, you might be going very fast in the other direction. So productivity is not about speed. Speed can be a result of productivity, but it's not the point. The point of productivity is to figure out what it is that you really want in life, to get really precise on your goals, figuring out what the action steps are for getting towards your goals, and then embarking on that journey. Now, by setting your goals, you're also telling yourself what you are not prioritizing so that you can stop doing those things. And that, in the end, can help you speed up the way to reaching the things that you do want to get. So speed can be a byproduct, but it's not the point of productivity. Now, the other reason why productivity is not about getting your work done faster is that productivity is not all about work. I think a lot of us come to productivity with the intention of improving the way that we work. And I understand that. I do that myself as well. But it's a very narrow-minded view of productivity. Let's think of productivity as the art of pursuing our goals. For example, I recently got into a new hobby sport, skydiving, jumping from planes for fun. It's extremely exciting. Now, one of my goals is to improve my skills at movement during the free fall portion of a skydive. So you're falling out of the sky, falling through the sky at 125 miles an hour. And I want to learn how to move in relation to other people and in relation to the earth. I need some coaching on that. So if I spend an afternoon going to my local drop zone and paying an instructor or a coach to teach me certain skills, how do I move left? How do I move right? How do I move up and down faster? How do I do back loops or 360s? I spend the afternoon doing that. It's not only fun, it's also a productive afternoon because I set a goal for myself to improve my skydiving movement skills. I'm moving towards my goal. That's productivity. So I want you to think of productivity not just as getting your work done and getting your work done faster, but pursuing your goals, which in the end is how we pursue happiness. Productivity myth number 2 is that it doesn't matter which tools you use. Some people say, hey, listen, don't spend too much time worrying about what apps you use. Just find any app and just write down the things that you need to do and then go ahead and do them. Like it's that simple. I understand the intention. Some of us spend way too much time looking at our apps. For example, if you've tried out 12 different to-do list apps and you still haven't found one that's acceptable to you and you're waiting to find the perfect one to do any work, hey, you just got to go get your hands dirty. The perfect app doesn't exist, and the same is true for the perfect productivity system. That said, there are differences between apps and systems, and some of them are going to work better for you and some of them are not. For example, my favorite to-do list app, Things 3, doesn't allow you to change the font size. So if your eyesight is not very good, this app is just not going to work for you very well because you can't see what's on there very well. It's a very basic example, right? It also doesn't allow you to add file attachments to your to-dos. So if you're someone who often has a PDF that you need to refer back to while you're working on specific tasks, hey, that might be a big limitation for you. My point is, it's worth spending a little bit of time finding a tool that thinks like you and that you enjoy using. If you think the way that the tool does, and if you enjoy using it, you're much more likely to stick with it and to keep the benefit. Just don't go overboard. Myth number 3 is that productivity misses the point of life. This one I feel very strongly about. People often tell me, Peter, you're so focused on your productivity. Why don't you just go out and enjoy the world? This completely misses the point of what productivity is. Yes, if you have the narrow view that productivity is about doing better at work, then perhaps you need to also focus on the non-work part of your life sometimes. However, we should define productivity as the art of pursuing our goals. We should consider ourselves productive when we know what we want from life and we are vigorously pursuing those things. Doesn't mean that there is no time for rest. That's a different issue. Productivity is not only about typing faster or about getting through your emails faster. Productivity is about producing. It's in the word. It's about creating. And creating is so meaningful. It's one of the most meaningful things you can do. You can create value for others through the work that you do in your job or in your business. You can create beautiful relationships with people. And yes, I think of relationships as something that we should consider in the domain of productivity. This is another thing that people are often onto me about. They're like, Peter, why do you have an area called relationships in your to-do list app? Well, you know what? If I make a promise to a friend, I write that promise down so that I make sure that I actually do it. This way, I'm using a productivity technique to help me establish more meaningful connections and relationships with other people. And really, what is there that is more meaningful in life than helping a friend. Myth number 4 is that productivity culture is toxic. And you'll sometimes hear people say this by referring to hustle culture being toxic as well. If you're always hustling, and never giving yourself a break, it's not sustainable. We should focus more on self-care. I'm all for self-care. In the end, your happiness is the most important thing. Happiness comes in many ways, but your happiness is the most important thing. Now, self-care doesn't always look like going to the spa. Don't get me wrong, I love going to the spa. I'm going to the spa this weekend. But you need to have some kind of balance. I spent 2 years of my life being really burned out after I worked in a pretty demanding consulting job. And in those 2 years, I really contributed very little to the world. I felt really stressed. I felt really anxious. At some point, I wasn't really able to vacuum the house without, sweating, my blood pressure rising, my heart rate rising. I was really in a bad shape. And one of the things that bothered me the most during that time is that I wasn't really able to produce anything, to work, to create anything, because in the end, those things are so meaningful. So self-care doesn't always look like doing nothing. Sometimes self-care is helping yourself contribute to the world. Of course, there needs to be some kind of balance. If you're always hustling, you're stressed, you're cranky, people are telling you, hey, are you sure that you shouldn't be taking a break, right? Yeah, maybe you do need to do nothing for a while. Doing nothing can be incredibly restorative, rewarding, and simply fun in itself. But I found that doing nothing is the most rewarding and the most fun if it comes after a period of intense creating, of producing, of being productive. And the other way around, the way to be the most productive, creative, to put your stamp on the world is to allow yourself a good rest. So there's got to be some balance. Productivity culture is not toxic. You just have to find the balance between self-care and productivity. Myth number 5 is that you should do what the productivity experts are doing. Let's say you've heard of Cal Newport and his idea of deep work. Deep work is the most valuable work that you could be doing. It's the work that requires the most focus. And that's what you should be prioritizing on your weekly calendar. There's a good reason for this, and this often works in many circumstances. But let's think about Cal Newport himself, the guy who wrote the book. And by the way, I love this book. It's a genius idea, but it's really good to think about the context. Cal Newport is a professor of computer science. His work involves thinking very hard about theoretical computer science problems and trying to solve those. Now, you might understand that that takes hours of focus, of uninterrupted time, uninterrupted productivity. If someone walks in the middle of a session, it might be very difficult for him to get back into the zone. So if you're in a situation like that, yeah, getting those 3-hour blocks of time on your calendar might be super important. But let's say you are a manager. You manage a team, or maybe you run your own business, or you're just in a position where you're working a lot with other people. But let's take the manager example. Your job as a manager, what is it? It is to inspire people. It is to set priorities for your team. It's to motivate people. It is to troubleshoot problems, right? It is to keep a finger on the pulse of the collaboration within the team. Are those things that are easy to do when you close the door to your office, you put on the do not disturb sign, and you just are in your own head for 3 hours? Probably not. Probably the way that you're going to be the most effective, dare I say, the most productive at your job, at the thing that you're supposed to be doing, is actually to be around people, to talk to people, to have lots of meetings. Meetings are like the opposite of deep work, right? No, not in the case where your job involves working with other people and taking care of them in a way. I want you to not blindly do what the productivity experts are saying. You should take even my advice with a healthy grain of salt every single time, because we're all different. We're all in different circumstances, for sure. Learn from productivity teachers, right? If you want to learn how to use specific apps, for example, take my courses. I'll help you get set up with those apps and teach you some workflows. But I always say in every single one of my videos, every single one of my courses, now you've got to figure out how to adapt this system to your own life, to your own circumstances, how to fit it into your own workflows, and you've got to build your own system. Hey, if this video got you thinking, check out my course, Big Picture Productivity, which is all about identifying your priorities and translating them into action. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. See you in the next one. Ciao.